The fall of the Jedi wasn't just another twist in the Star Wars timeline. It was the moment the galaxy broke. For 1,000 years, the Jedi stood as symbols of peace and balance, protectors of truth in a world drowning in chaos. And then, in the span of a few days, they were gone, erased by betrayal, buried in silence, and remembered only as myths. What makes their fall so haunting isn't just what they lost, it's what they represented. They weren't perfect, but they were the last line between order and oppression. When they fell, the galaxy didn't just lose protectors, it lost the idea that good could win without becoming cruel. That's what still hurts. It wasn't a dramatic battle or a noble defeat, it was paperwork, deception, and a single coded order that turned friends into killers. The clones didn't hesitate, the Senate didn't question, and the Force itself seemed to go quiet. In a universe built on hope, silence became the loudest sound of all. Every survivor carried that silence with them. Obi-Wan, Yoda, Ahsoka, they all lived with ghosts, not just of people, but of choices. The ones they made, the ones they didn't, and the ones that still echo through the Force decades later. Even the rise of Luke Skywalker doesn't erase the pain, it only proves that light has to rebuild itself from ruin. The Jedi didn't just die, they left a wound on the galaxy that never really healed. And maybe it's not supposed to. In this video, we'll explore why the fall of the Jedi still hurts, how their arrogance and sacrifice changed the fate of the galaxy, and why even after all these years, their silence still echoes louder than the Force itself. The fall of the Jedi wasn't just the collapse of an order, it was the extinction of hope itself. For 1,000 generations, they were the moral compass of the galaxy, the guardians of balance, the keepers of peace. And then, almost overnight, they became enemies of the state, betrayed not by the Force, but by the very systems they swore to protect. That's not just tragedy, it's cosmic irony at its finest. What makes their downfall hit so hard is how gradual it really was. It didn't start with Order 66. It started decades earlier, when the Jedi stopped listening to the living Force and started listening to the Senate. They became soldiers instead of sages, diplomats instead of dreamers. By the time the Clone Wars began, they weren't peacekeepers. They were pawns wearing robes. Their trust in the Republic was their greatest weakness. The Council believed that if they followed the rules, the galaxy would follow them. But bureaucracy doesn't honour faith. It exploits it. Palpatine didn't need to destroy the Jedi with a lightsaber. He did it with paperwork, patience, and 1,000 small compromises. It's hard to watch because you can see it coming from miles away. Every council meeting, every cautious debate about the will of the Force, every time they ignored a moral instinct because it wasn't procedure, you can feel the arrogance building like a slow poison. They were too wise to be wrong, and that's what doomed them. Even their victory in the Clone Wars was a mirage. The more battles they won, the more they lost themselves. They fought for a Senate that was already rotting, under the leadership of a Chancellor who was literally their enemy in disguise. And through it all, they kept telling themselves it was for peace. That's the kind of blindness that doesn't come from stupidity. It comes from faith pushed past reason. When the clones turned on them, it wasn't just betrayal, it was justice twisted into mockery. The Jedi had raised those soldiers, led them, trusted them, and in one command, they became instruments of the Empire. There's something deeply symbolic about that. Peacekeepers destroyed by their own army, leaders executed by their own students. You can see the emotional fallout in survivors like Obi-Wan and Yoda. They don't just lose a war, they lose their religion. Their silence on Tatooine and Dagobah isn't meditation, it's mourning. The weight of 1,000 lost voices echoing through the Force. That's not retirement, it's exile soaked in guilt. The fall hurts because it was preventable. The signs were everywhere, but no one wanted to admit them. The Jedi weren't defeated by the dark side, they were defeated by their own certainty that they couldn't be. In that sense, their extinction wasn't a single tragedy, it was the slow death of enlightenment. The light didn't go out all at once, it flickered, and they didn't notice until it was gone. The Clone Wars are remembered as the Jedi's last stand, but really they were their undoing. No order built on peace can survive a war built on lies. The Jedi thought they were saving the Republic, but every victory they won only tightened the noose, Palpatine had placed around their necks. It's almost poetic, the defenders of peace becoming the generals of destruction. From the very beginning, the Jedi were out of their depth. They weren't soldiers, they were monks, philosophers, and teachers forced into battlefields they didn't understand. Their faith in the Force couldn't guide them through political deception and moral compromise. They followed orders instead of the Force, and that's how they lost both. Every episode of the Clone Wars shows their slow unraveling. Anakin bending rules for results, Mace Windu treating war like chess, Yoda talking about destiny while the galaxy burns. Even the victories feel hollow because they come at the cost of innocence. When you see a Jedi leading troops into battle, it's not triumph, it's tragedy in motion. The irony is that they never saw themselves as part of the problem. They kept talking about bringing balance, but their very presence in the war created imbalance. They didn't realize they were fighting on both sides. The Republic and the Separatists were both manipulated by the same Sith Lord. It's the ultimate trick. Turn your enemies into your employees. You can feel the disillusionment building inside the Order itself. Ahsoka. Tano's departure is one of the clearest symbols of that fracture. She saw the corruption. She felt the hypocrisy. And when the Council turned on her, she walked away. And that's what makes it sting. The one Jedi who truly embodied their ideals had to leave to stay true to them. By the end of the war, the Jedi weren't heroes anymore. They were ghosts of their own ideals. You see it in how they talk, how they act. Detached, tired, robotic. They're not fighting for victory. They're fighting because they don't know what else to do. That's not strength. It's surrender wearing discipline as armor. Palpatine didn't destroy the Jedi. He made them destroy themselves. He corrupted their mission so slowly that they didn't even realize what side they were on anymore. When the clones finally turned, it wasn't just physical annihilation, it was moral completion. The final proof that they were never in control. What hurts most is how easily it all ended. The purge didn't take months, it took minutes. A few coded words, a few turned blasters, and the galaxy's greatest warriors were gone. Decades of wisdom, training, and faith erased in a heartbeat. Not with honor, but with obedience. The fall of the Jedi isn't just sad, it's humiliating. It's the story of an order that thought itself immortal, brought down not by superior strength, but by superior strategy. And that's what makes it timeless. Because it's not just about Star Wars, it's about every institution that loses sight of its purpose, while still believing it's righteous. The Jedi may have fallen, but their absence haunts every frame of Star Wars that follows. From Luke Skywalker's loneliness to Rey's confusion, the legacy of their failure defines everything that comes after. The galaxy didn't just lose an order, it lost its moral compass. And once the light went out, no one knew how to find it again. In A New Hope, Luke's fascination with the Jedi isn't nostalgia, it's longing. He's dreaming of something that doesn't exist anymore, something pure and impossible. When Obi-Wan gives him Anakin's lightsaber, it's not a weapon, it's a relic. A reminder of a time when the Force meant faith, not fear. That moment hits harder once you realize what Obi-Wan had to survive to even hand it over. Every generation after the fall carries its scars. Luke tries to rebuild the Order, only to repeat its mistakes. The Jedi were obsessed with rules. He becomes obsessed with rebuilding them. Even in trying to fix the past, he becomes a prisoner of it. That's the lingering curse of the Jedi legacy. No one ever learns from it. They just inherit its failures. The prequels showed us how arrogance destroyed the Jedi. The sequels showed us how guilt destroyed their legacy. Luke's despair, Rey's confusion, even Kylo Ren's rebellion, they're all echoes of the same wound. The galaxy lost the balance the Jedi once claimed to protect, and it's been limping ever since. But that's what makes the pain beautiful. It's not clean, it's cyclical. The Jedi's downfall keeps reminding us that light isn't something you inherit. It's something you have to earn again and again. That's why Yoda's final lesson to Luke in The Last Jedi hits so hard. The greatest teacher. Failure is. It's not just a quote, it's the thesis of the entire saga. Andor's rebellion, Leia's persistence, even the hope in the smallest corners of the galaxy, they were all built on the ashes of the Jedi. The Force didn't disappear. It's scattered, hiding in ordinary people who refuse to give up. That's the legacy the Order never understood. The Force doesn't belong to temples or councils. It belongs to anyone brave enough to believe in something better. The fall still hurts because it represents the loss of innocence. The Jedi were supposed to be the galaxy's adults, the wise ones who kept everything together. And when they fell, everyone else had to grow up fast. The galaxy learned that peace isn't permanent and that even the brightest light can cast a shadow. Every great Star Wars story since has been about trying to relight that spark. Not to bring back the Jedi as they were, but to rediscover what they meant. Balance, empathy, courage. The traits that make heroes out of mortals, not monks out of warriors. The Jedi didn't die in vain. They became a warning. That faith without humility leads to blindness, and that even the purest ideals can rot when power gets involved. Their fall hurts because it's not just the galaxy's loss. It's ours. A reminder that no matter how high the light climbs, darkness is always waiting for the moment it forgets to look down.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.